The United Africans Transformation says South Africa cannot fully benefit from the 2025 G20 outcomes due to weak leadership, collapsing governance systems, and chronic infrastructure failure. And while the G20 focuses on development, financing, and global cooperation, the UAT argues that South Africa remains held back by internal dysfunction, from unreliable roads, water, and energy systems to inconsistent planning and poor accountability. Now, the group says failing governance undermines competitiveness, limits investment opportunities, and weakens the country's ability to meet a global commitment. So we are going to be focusing on this, looking at the challenges that, of course, South Africa is faced with, and see if there is a way for solutions so that it can benefit from these global discussions and, of course, serve as a beacon for other African countries. I'm joined by Mighty Mabule, spokesperson for United Africans Transformation. Mighty, thank you so much for joining us.
Much for inviting us, Kanimambu.
So UAT actually rolled out a couple of issues that South Africa will need to deal with if it hopes to benefit from these global discussions, most especially as G20 just got concluded. So how do weak governance, leadership issues directly or indirectly affect South Africa's ability to actually enjoy benefits from major global platforms like the G20?
Yes, I mean, weak governance, negatively affects any country's development because it actually fosters corruption, it weakens institutions, and creates some kind of a policy instability, which leads to reduced economic growth, and diminished investment. So by having that weak governance and leadership that is not strong, you run the risk of not being able to benefit from actually G20 opportunities. So as a country, we need to strengthen our governance system. We need to make sure that we put proper leadership so that we can benefit from that. Otherwise, opportunities will come and they'll find us not prepared for them, because you prepare for the opportunity by making sure that you create a platform. And that platform can be created by a strong governance system and strong leadership. So as United African Transformation, we're actually saying we need to work much harder, because you cannot just compare ourselves with the first world countries that have everything in place and think all these opportunities will come to us and we'll just translate them into some kind of solutions for our people.
All right. The group also mentioned infrastructure failures. I'm talking about power, water, roads, digital systems. And one would ask the question, why are these issues there for the fastest growing economy in Africa, even the first in Africa in terms of economic prowess? And you have other African countries that are actively competing for these positions with South Africa.
Yes, look, the infrastructure failures. I mean, everyone knows that if you have an energy problem, you run the risk of not being able to attract some kind of investment, because now, as a continent, one of the discussions that dominate all the corridors of power is the issue of industrialization. And you cannot talk about industrialization if you don't solve the energy challenge, if you don't solve the water challenge, if you don't, you can't run the mining operations without water, without clear roads, without electricity, just an example. So it's important for us as a country to ensure that we improve our infrastructure so that when all these opportunities come, they are able to be exploited properly, because you can't run industrialization program, you can't run all those global competitive programs as indicated by different outcomes without energy, without water, without proper roads. So it's important for us as a country to sit down and say, how do we make sure that the load shedding that we've been experiencing, the load shedding that has been discouraging investors, the roads that are not good, how do we make sure that we address them so that as a country we can be able to benefit from the global outcomes?
All right, there's also talks around internal political and governance dysfunction. How did this also affect South Africa's, of course, lack of opportunities now if these issues are not dealt with?
Look, if you read the Auditor General's report, it clearly indicates that we have a challenge at the local level, at the local government level. We have a challenge at the provincial level. We also have a challenge at the national level. So we need to make sure that we strengthen our governance systems. We need to make sure that we put capable leaders, because you can have the best opportunities in the world, but if you don't have capable leaders, knowledgeable and skillful, to champion the economic development of our country, we still run the risk of missing out. So the governance structures, the governance systems are very much important to us as a country, to ensure that we can actually exploit the opportunities that are there. So it's important as United African Transformation, and we are saying as United African Transformation that South Africa must actually, raise the socks, tighten all the bolts and nuts, provide proper leadership, put governance system, enhance our processes, so that we can be able to benefit from the contribution that we made by the G20 members.
There are also concerns, Mighty, about poor accountability and inconsistent public spending, which, according to reports, might, of course, impact investor confidence in South Africa's economy. How important are these two?
Look, every investor will love to see some kind of return on investment. Every country, every partner that comes into partnership with you will actually, make sure that they kind of benefit from whatever that you have actually laid down. But if you have poor governance, if you have poor accountability, if you are inconsistent spending, you can run the risk of discouraging those investors. Because if investors came to partner with you on renewable energy or mining, for example, it won't make sense if they understand later that particular investment was actually directed at the different sector or at the different function. So inconsistent spending and lack of accountability are some of the things that can actually kind of, discourage an investment. And I mean, everyone will know in this country, you read the Auditor General's report, it will just tell you about, inconsistent spending, wasteful expenditure. And you can imagine if there's some investment that are involved, if there are some partners that are coming on board. So it will be very much discouraging to the strategic partners and to the investors.
Okay, so you actually advocate for the right kind of leaders to be elected into the right posts to solve the myriad of challenges facing South Africa. Some people are saying what is needed are actually reforms. I don't know if that actually strikes a chord in you as regards what urgent steps need to be taken to actually strengthen South Africa's public institutions and, of course, improve service delivery.
Look, our country has multidisciplinary expertise. Our country has opportunities. Our country has resources. But the challenge that we have is a lack of proper leadership. And I've indicated a lot about the the Auditor General's report. One can even look at the Public Service Commission report that indicated that we have many senior leaders that are not qualified to do what they're doing. So the major reform that needs to be put in place is to ensure that you appoint the right leaders, the right managers to do the job. So if you appoint managers and leaders on the basis of political affiliation, if you've appointed managers and leaders through the cadre deployment because they come from the political party that you belong to, you run the risk of actually collapsing what is supposed to be improving. So the major reform is to ensure, and as United African Transformation, we always emphasize that make sure that you get capable leaders, knowledgeable leaders, skillful leaders, disciplined leaders, and leaders that uphold to an African expression that says "Mutu gi mutu kabantu," I am because you are. So the expression that propels us toward the direction of relationship building, towards the direction of proper and clear humanity. So as United African Transformation was saying, there's no big reform. There's no bigger reform than making sure that you appoint the right leaders that are actually capable, that are actually knowledgeable. Because culture always eats strategy for breakfast. One man said that. So you can have the best strategy, you can have the best outcomes, but if you don't have the best leaders that can give birth to a better culture, you run the risk of becoming irrelevant and not benefiting from the outcomes.
So does this mean that the Cyril Ramaphosa administration and the ANC of course, the coalition government actually lack the requisite leadership skills to actually deal with South Africa's socio-economic challenges. Is that what you mean?
Look, numbers don't lie. The writing is on the wall. Read the report from Statistics General in terms of poverty, in terms of hunger, in terms of unemployment. Approximately 40 to 50% of young people with qualifications are on the street. So I don't want to talk about the poverty that is so rampant, the hunger that is so rampant, the challenge with our education system, the challenge with our housing program. So the problems that we have in this country reflect the poor leadership that we have. So as United African Transformation, we're saying the writing is on the wall, numbers don't lie. Just take the reports. Public Service Commission from the same government produced the report that says many of the senior leaders across different levels of government are not qualified to do their job. So it means at some point we have a municipal manager, that doesn't even have some kind of a degree or the knowledge to run those finances, to manage those big budgets. So the reports are there. The reports are there for everyone to see. But honestly speaking, for us to fix this country, for us to make this country a very good investment destination for everyone, we need to deal with the issue of leadership.
So are there other African countries that you would like to take inspiration from? Probably South Africa can also learn from them in terms of lessons to improve on governance and enhance global competitiveness.
Yes. Look, there's lots. We are supposed to be very far as a country, honestly speaking. We are not supposed to be having the service delivery challenges which include water, electricity, and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying this creating an impression that we're in a West state. I'm saying this as a form of motivation, as a form of inspiration to the powers that be, to say we can do much as a country. So there's a lot of African countries that can even learn from what we were actually portray. The multidisciplinary expertise that we have, the research institutions that we actually have in this country. We have some of the institutions that are one of the best in the world. We have the innovation hub that is one of the best in the continent. We have a lot of inventions that are coming from our country. But we are saying as United African Transformation, we can do more because the people on the ground, they don't eat inventions. The people don't eat GDP. The people don't eat outcomes. For as long as all those things are not able to be translated into food on the table, then we still run the risk of becoming irrelevant. Because at some point, we come up with, as a nation or even as a world, we come up with all this scholastic concept as if people on the ground, consume those things. But for as long as poverty is still rampant, hunger is still rampant, yes, other countries can learn from us, but as a country we are saying we cannot afford to have a situation where we still have water challenge after 31 years of democracy. We still have the education system that is one of the poorest in the world. We still have young people that are in the street with qualification because there's no employment, and the list goes on and on. So there's a lot of lessons that can be learned, but as a country we are supposed to be very far.
Okay, well, I like the fact that you mentioned during the course of your response that ethical, capable, strong leadership and building strong institutions are needed in South Africa to be able to channel conversations that help to, solve its perennial internal crisis as it continues to engage with its global partners. We hope that this administration will take that initiative for its benefit and the benefit of all South Africans. Mighty Mabule, spokesperson for United Africans Transformation, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.